morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are back with another Neurodiversity Stories with your host. My name is Darren Clark. So why do we put these shows out, guys? And it's purely for you to spread more awareness around neurodiversity, but also get some amazing people in to also share their stories, but also their knowledge around neurodiversity. So guys, as always, we couldn't do this without you. So please do let us know where you're tuning in from. As said in previous shows before, we get people from all across the globe: Australia, Poland, Argentina, Kenya, America. So please, if you are watching this live, please feel free to drop in your name, who you are, kind of what you do. And it would be fantastic to also connect with other people around the neurodiversity sector. So with that said, we also have an amazing guest today. We have my really good friend, Vic Williams, who is doing phenomenal work within this sector. And I'm absolutely thrilled. I know how incredibly busy he is. So when he said, gave the opportunity to come on, I grabbed it with both hands and said, yes, it'd be amazing to grab you. Can I have you for 45 minutes? And he said, yes. That'd be absolutely fine. So you are going to love this guy. I'm sure if you're not connected with Vic at the moment, then what's happened? Please do connect with him. He is doing incredible stuff. He's also doing on LinkedIn Live as well, which we're going to touch on as well. His broadcasting, his message, his business, the whole kind of ethos on this. What we're going to be, just to give you kind of a synopsis of what we're going to be talking about. And we're going to be talking around the understanding of dyslexia from a neuroscience perspective. Easier for me to say. How it impacts businesses and personal development. I think, specifically talking about personal development, overcoming self-doubt, working through the things that people have said about dyslexics, creative thinking, getting comfortable with reading in public, setting personal development challenges and accountability to a group of people who care. It is going to be an absolute jam-packed 45 minutes of talking to Vic. So I will be bringing him on shortly. So guys, as I said before, if you are tuning in, let us know whereabouts in the world you're tuning in from. It's always good to hear from you guys. The other thing I'd like to say is a massive thank you as well to all of our previous sponsors that have sponsored these shows. And I also want to say a massive thank you to our current sponsor, Claro Writing Helper. And they've been absolutely phenomenal. And I just want to share with you guys this.
If the thought of writing essays fills you with dread, then you need Claro Writing Helper from Claro Software. Our intuitive, easy-to-use software takes the stress out of essay writing by giving you 7 clear, easy-to-follow steps to help you organise your thinking, develop the flow, capture snippets from documents and websites, and produce great essay content. Contact us today to start your free 15-day trial and say goodbye to essay writing anxiety.
So guys, a massive thank you to Clara Writer Helper. All of their details will be all in the blurb underneath. If you're watching this later on replay or on YouTube or listening to it on the podcast, please do check out the blurb for more information on how you can get hold of that incredible company and their software. Guys, without further ado, this is what you're here for. You're here to hear a conversation with myself and Vic. So I would like to introduce you to my good friend, Vic Williams. Good morning, Vic. How are you, my friend?
Hey, Darren. Good to see you, buddy. Awesome to be here, man.
And just like that, you're on, like this.
Like we've never had a problem before.
No, technology has always been kind to us. And
absolutely.
And that's what we'll be saying for the next 44 minutes. But Vic, I am absolutely thrilled. You're a great friend of mine. We connected quite some time ago on LinkedIn. Been an absolute, a massive admirer of the content you're putting out, the work that you're doing. Honestly, every time I see your post pop up, I'm always kind of intrigued and reading and watching the video and stuff. It's always educational, entertaining. But for people that don't know you, it would be great if you could just give a little bit of a kind of a little bit who you are, a little bit background. That'd be amazing, my friend.
Yeah, Darren, firstly, thanks very much for inviting me on your show, man. I love your intro. I love all this kind of stuff that's going on, man. It's just like, it's so pro. It's like, wow, I'm on this guy's show. It's like brilliant. So yeah, we met a little while ago, and obviously we've stayed in contact since then. But me, my background is obviously I'm South African, not a New Zealander or an Australian, like I've been accused of recently. Yeah, so I live down in Exeter, and I run my business called the Audacious Training Company. We have a variety of different things that we do, primarily in the area of neuroscience or neurocoaching. Is one of the primary areas we're involved in. And then we talk a lot about leadership management, sales, LinkedIn, those sort of things from a training perspective, but primarily involved in that area of neurocoaching, with a kind of focus on people that are in the neurodiverse community. But I mean, pretty much anyone we'll talk to and share these ideas around neuroscience and that sort of stuff. From a background perspective, I kind of left school probably, I don't know, for the South Africans, if there's any South Africans on here, you'll know I left school in standard 8, which is probably 2 years sooner than I should have.
Okay.
But it was the first opportunity that legally was allowed, because I grabbed hold of it. I was out of there, man. I wasn't going to stick around longer than I had to, because I literally hated going to school. Somebody put a post up yesterday, I think it was, on LinkedIn about the new school year starting, and how do you feel about it? And I can be honest with you, Darren. For me, the new school year, which in South Africa starts at the kind of on middle of January, because obviously right now is winter there, so down there our school years are slightly different. December was great holiday. It was always summer holiday. It was awesome. But then starting school in January for me was just, oh man, it was a nightmare. I absolutely hated it. So got bailed out as soon as I could. Started working, spent a bunch of months laying on the beach, surfing, grew my hair as long as I possibly could, and then went off to the military for 6.5 years.
Wow.
And then just, carried on from there, and been here now in the UK for just over 10 years.
Amazing, Vic. I'm going to thank you so much. Thank you for breaking that. It's almost like this is your life. You're going to just break things down. But it's really good to get the perspective. And if you don't mind, I kind of touch on a few of the things that you mentioned.
Of course.
When we talk about the kind of the school element of it, and that kind of how you kind of hated that going back to school. That kind of January kind of that feeling, that kind of pit in the stomach, because that it's the build up as well, isn't it? That would have been really kind of because there's 24 hours in the day. We know this and the amount of time that you spend in your own mind thinking about the anxiety starts building up, and that kind of, what was the kind of thing, the thought patterns that went through your mind? Because obviously you're a very courageous person, very driven in what you do. What gave you that kind of drive to just continuously battle through it?
Yeah, so I was, I had like most people, a kind of challenging upbringing. There was a whole bunch of things that went on, and at one point in my life, so I had a very fractious relationship with my father, and a similar kind of fractious relationship with my mother. There was a whole bunch of things going on, and I remember one particular day, I'd had this physical disagreement with my dad, and I was sitting in the corner really feeling sorry for myself. And my grandmother and grandfather lived with us, and my granddad came over to me and he said to me, "Never ever let him beat you." And it was kind of not the beat you kind of from a physical perspective.
Yeah.
But it was all of that included. So it was the physical, it was the mental, it was the emotional, all that sort of stuff was what he was saying. Never let him beat you. And kind of that started a train of thought going in my head, because up until then, school had been a challenge. You go to school because you're dyslexic. And that time, I'm talking about the late 60s, early 70s. This thing of dyslexia, I'd never heard of it. I didn't know it existed. Neurodiversity wasn't even a thought in somebody's imagination, So it was that kind of environment that we were in. And so going to school, you were stupid. Immediately, you couldn't read, you were stupid. Game over, sit in the corner, suck it up, you're dumb. And you kept on being putting down into lower classes. And so you kind of got this idea, you're stupid. And when my granddad said to me, Vic, don't let him beat you. It was kind of, I had a great relationship with my granddad. And so it was kind of that, it set a chain of thoughts going in my head, even at the age of 7. And one of those thoughts was, I will never allow anyone to beat me. Full stop.
Yeah.
That got me to a few sticky spots because I started an adventure. I call it an adventure at that time, trying to understand why I was the way I was. And obviously there was no internet, and so Encyclopedia Britannica was the big thing, and I had to convince my grandparents to buy Encyclopedia Britannica when the guy came knocking on the door, and instead of letting my dad beat the guy up because he wanted to sell something to us. Anyway, I kind of started this adventure trying to understand why I was the way I was. Why was I stupid? And slowly started to understand I just think differently.
Yeah.
And so then when I just shortly after my 13th birthday, I started my first business. And so starting that and getting it going and seeing things happen gave me that encouragement to say, well, I can do this. You who are being educated, you who can read well, you can't do what I can do. So I can't do what you can do. You can't do what I can do. And so it started to build this thing inside me. I will overcome this thing in whichever way I want.
It's incredible.
Or in whichever way I can. And so by the time I got to the age of 16 and now could leave school, like I said, I was out of there as fast as I could. I don't even think I wrote my final exams that year, and I'd already repeated a year. So in those days, you could if you didn't pass your exams, you failed and you stayed back a year. And so I'd already stayed back a year, and there was no way I was going to do that. And anybody that objected to it, I just sorry, this is what I'm doing, and kind of I built that. That underlying thing of I will overcome. No matter what I got to deal with, no matter what I got to go through, I will overcome. And I think that's one of the things that I've found as I've continued to research neuroscience, dyspraxia, dyslexia, all those different neurodiverse environments. I'm starting to see that that's something that seems to underlie most of the people who have kind of worked through the challenge. And so for me right now, I don't see myself as living with a condition. I'm living with myself. This is who I am. If you don't like it, great. If you do like it, awesome. And I think I've kind of built that
And I guess, because the work that you do within this sector, and I find it as well, and I know we've spoken about this when, I was a guest on your podcast and things. It's amazing that you never really know how many people you're helping with what you're creating, because it's not tried and tested every single time. It's kind of, you put something out and then you'll get, and I'm sure, we spoke about this, the amount of, private messages that you would get from people kind of just reaching out, and that's phenomenal. And it's humbling, really, isn't it? When you feel just because you've put but you put a bit of content out, or you give a bit of your story or something, and then it relates to someone and they feel the confidence that they can kind of, bring that out.
Absolutely.
And I can see whenever we speak to someone, it always, this is why, I created Neurodiversity Stories. I know you're a big story lover. Love stories. But I guess around the neurodiversity, dyslexia, dyspraxia, autism, all this, there's always seems to be a story that resonates with someone to why, how they are today, that pattern and that growth, isn't it?
Yeah. I think, for me, everybody has a story. No matter who you are, if you were born at some point, which hopefully if you're alive, you were born at some point, you have a story, and that story is valuable. And that story is a story that can change and transform other people's lives. And I think it's important that we hear those stories.
Yes.
But I think when we come to talking about people that have dyslexia or dyspraxia or any of those neurodiverse conditions, I think what's happened in the past of that is that story has been sidelined until that person really makes it. So, for example, Elon Musk, okay, he's dyslexic, okay? So nobody really probably took him seriously in his early life until suddenly he burst on the scene. Now the story is important. What I think we are seeing now, though, is that there's a change in this thing. As more people are stepping up and saying, this is my story, more people are saying, I want to hear that story. Yeah. And the story is now becoming more and more relevant.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, because I was speaking on somebody else's show a little while ago, talking about children in school and the way they are often treated. I mean, I mentioned my story and I know your story as well at school, of that thing, you're stupid, you're dumb, you've got nothing relevant to add, you're not going to amount to anything, yada, 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 yada. Sort of go off and play sandcastles kind of thing. Yeah. That unfortunately is still happening. Unfortunately, we still see that so much in school, because not because I don't think it's because the teachers don't want to help those kids. It's just they've got too many kids in the class. They don't have the opportunity. And so, and because of the way they are kind of judged, I suppose, is they've got to focus on the higher performing kids, because that's where they're going to get that kind of thing. And so that story for those kids gets sidelined.
Yeah.
But I think as more of us start to share our stories, it encourages those kids to start sharing their stories.
I completely agree. Vic, you hit the nail on the head, and wonderfully put. And it is right. It's almost, some people, I guess, need to feel, well, I'll share my dyslexia story. Say, for instance, if we just take dyslexia, when I become successful, or when I feel that I've achieved this, or when I have a certain status that enables, and I think one of the biggest pressures, I think, when we need stories from all different perspectives of the world, okay? And yes, we can have the celebrity side of it, but we also need the everyday person. We also need, there's so many different aspects, and this is why I love listening to everyone's stories, because I used to think, I'm a big fan of, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, these things. I mean, if you're, you run a business or you're intrigued about business, then you're always kind of look at these people as these kind of superheroes of business, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But then if you've got I always think, if you've got a student that is struggling in school and struggling to read, struggling to write, struggling to communicate, literally communicate, get out how they're feeling, because they don't really understand the words moving, or the stress that's kind of the anxiety that's coming around. And then they find out they have dyslexic, and they say, "Oh, you're dyslexic. Don't worry, you can be like Richard Branson." I mean, the expectation put on, and I'm not saying that they put that expectation, but I'm a big believer in dreaming big. Don't get me wrong. Build a big, dream big, and I'm not saying that they couldn't be the next Richard Branson. But sometimes I think the gap seems to be
too large,
too far. To say, okay, you're struggling to read, struggling to do this assignment in class, but you could be the next billionaire and fly to the moon. I think sometimes it gets a little bit muddy, doesn't it?
I think it does get muddy, Darren. And to just pick up on that point, if somebody had said that to me, let's say, for example, I'd been diagnosed with dyslexia when I was, say, 13 or 14, and a teacher came to me and said to me, "Hey, Vic, don't worry, you are dyslexic. That's great. You can be the next Richard Branson and fly to the moon." That wouldn't have meant much to me, because I don't want to go to the moon.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be Richard Branson. I want to be me. I want to know who I am, why I am, and what my purpose here is. And I think that's where telling ordinary people's stories can give those younger kids, those younger people, those younger adults, even the the archaic older blokes like myself, the courage and the encouragement to say, no matter what the issue is, there is a plan for you. There is a reason why you're here. You're not just here to suck up oxygen or to take up space. You're here for a purpose, and I'm going to help you find that purpose. I'm going to draw you in, or you can just look at what I'm doing and you can go, hey, I want something similar. And if we, instead of saying, hey, you can be the next Richard Branson, and believe me, I'm an entrepreneur. I've got no problem with people growing massive businesses and making massive amounts of money. I've got no problem with that at all. But I think if I want to encourage somebody, I would rather say to them, let's understand you. Let's understand what you want, what your passion is, what that thing is that drives you. And go back to myself as a 13-year-old. I had to figure out what it was that I wanted from life. And I can remember clearly the day sitting down and thinking to myself, I don't want to work for somebody for 40 years, 40 hours a week. And then after that 40 years, somebody goes, here's a gold watch. Thank you very much. Hasta la vista. And 6 months later, I'm dead. I want to experience life. I want to live life. I want to do stuff that other people maybe don't do or don't want to do. I want to live my life. And I think that's kind of the message that I'm trying to encourage other people like us to convey. Be you, be the best you can be. It's exciting to have a brain that runs all over the place all the time and picks up different ideas. Man, it's so exciting. The world becomes alive,
Yeah.
Rather than this kind of blinkered view that people often have.
Do you think we naturally, is it kind of a human instinct, I guess, to naturally try and relate something to something? So we then say, okay, so it's dyslexia. So, you could be Richard Branson. Do you think that's a natural trait that we have as humans?
Yeah, I think it is a natural trait to try to encourage people to be that big next superstar. I think it's a natural thing for us to go, so he's this elevated kind of position. He's this guy, he's up on that pedestal. And to say, I think it's a natural thing for us to say, reach to that pedestal.
Yeah.
I think that's a natural thing. And I don't say it's wrong. I just think we could change the conversation slightly.
Yeah.
Aim to be the next Richard Branson. But in aiming to do that, be you. Be the best you can be. Absolutely.
And concur that massively, Vic. And I think we, we've got onto the topic of Richard Branson purely because of, the dyslexia and, he's a...
You brought it up.
I did, yeah. Thanks for reminding me that. But lost my train of thought now. No, but we and he does share, on his blogs, his kind of dyslexia journey to a certain degree, and and I guess it's always, we're very intrigued, ask a lot of questions. Now we do. In school, I always remember I was thinking, how does that work? Why am I sat in a car and I can move around, but if I was going at the same speed outside, I'd have flies hitting me and everything else. I was always the kind of the why kid,
Yes.
and I guess when I got into school and kept putting my hand up and asking. The questions that I probably asked as a child to my parents were, they were very patient and said, and answered some of the questions. But when you get to school and you ask these questions, I can see the confidence for me kind of got knocked out of me, because that element of asking those questions and then they're deemed, it's that phrase when they say no question's a silly question or something else. In school, it felt like most questions that I said was a silly question. Because you'd either have your peers kind of laughing or the teacher doing the kind of, and it's a very tough environment.
Absolutely.
On top of that as well, trying to learn, like you said, who you are and why you can do the things that other people are doing at that speed or in that way. Yeah,
you're so right, Darren. Like you say, parents are often patient. I had perhaps a slightly different position. My grandparents were very patient. As I said, they lived with us. They were very patient. They were very communicative. And I think that my granddad was probably dyslexic. But, it's just, I think. I can't prove it.
Yeah.
But he was really patient. We used to sit and talk a lot. He told a lot of stories. Some of them, I don't know even know if they were real. But he told a lot of stories. It communicated ideas through story. And so I became very inquisitive. And it's from that conversation or those conversations that I built a passion for the Second World War and to understand how it worked and all that sort of stuff. And so I developed that why. But why that? Why that? Why did they do this? Why did they think like that? Why did they think they could win here? Yeah, and again, I, like you, translated that into school. But very quickly, you start to realize, hey, they're laughing at me. I'm asking a question, but they're laughing. And you start to think, no, maybe I am stupid.
Yeah.
Maybe I should know this stuff. And unfortunately, what happens is, yes, you get the teacher rolling their eyes backwards, and then you go out into the break time area, and you may be having your sandwiches or whatever, and there's always a group of kids that's, oh, he's stupid, no, and that kind of breaks your confidence down. And so very soon you get to the place of where you're not asking questions anymore.
Yeah,
I think to a degree, maybe I just had a very thick skin, and took a lot of beatings, but I carried on asking questions,
And you're absolutely right, Vic. And I feel it separation for me, because there's this conversation around kind of the educational system where should they take children out of lessons and then to give them extra support, or should they and I say, like I've said on numerous times on these stories, I take my hat off to teachers. It's an incredibly difficult job, especially when you have 30 children in a room. Everyone learns differently, and then to try and control that and inspire is I take my hat off to them. And I feel that, the biggest thing for me, I guess, from my school years was the separation. I spent, all 5 years of my secondary school in, a thing called unit, which, was
an awful trailer in the background. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not sometimes being in the unit, it's walking to the unit. It's grabbing your bag and leaving the 29 other children to then walk off, to then do that kind of lonely walk to the school playing field. And there was windows all around the side of the school. So it's almost like, like a goldfish bowl in some aspects, because, and I'm not saying everyone was kind of staring out the window in this, but when you get into that repetitive pattern of that separation, but then you're taken back, the bell would go, and then you would come out of the unit, and then you would go back into the school field and start playing football and stuff like this. That the separation was tough.
Yeah. So in our school, we didn't have that kind of thing that you had. We had what was known in amongst the students as the stupid class. So the classes were graded A, B, C, and D. And D was the dummies, the dunces, and the stupid class. And so all of those kids that probably were all dyslexic or had dyspraxia or had some kind of neurodiverse condition were just jammed into that class. And we were all called lazy. We were called stupid. I cannot think of how many times on my report card said, if only he would work harder, he would be a better student. How do you work harder than you working already? It's just one of those really dumb things. And I do take your point, and I agree with you. I could never be a teacher. Don't even put me there. It would be a nightmare. So I've got a huge amount of respect for those people that are teachers in schools and colleges and so on. But that separation, that you're in the stupid class, man, that creates a nightmare, because we weren't. So we'd walk into school. We'd all have this thing in the morning called assembly. We'd all get in junior school. We all stood in lines in your class. And then the headmaster would stand at the front, and he'd give this whole blurb. and then you would lead off in your class to go to your classroom for the day, or wherever you were starting a class. And it was always the D class in the grade we were in that always left last. So you were left behind, and everybody else went off, and then you would go off. And it's that same separation thing. And everybody's walking away, and they're looking at you and going, stupid class.
That's what I mean. There's so many, like, it's subliminal. You don't even have to say it. It's that it's creating
Absolutely.
this divide and this. I mean, it frustrates me when it saddens me, I guess, and because I can kind of relate to to this, kind of what I went through and what you went through, and that kind of separation side of it is. Yeah. When you left school, had the opportunity to leave school, because I can imagine if you were similar to me in that sense, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but the restrictions of not being able to think the way that to kind of really kind of harness your skills, or kind of do what you needed to do in schools. For me, I felt there was a massive restriction, that I couldn't learn the way that they wanted me to learn. I couldn't give the reports back to how they wanted to. I couldn't sit the exams, and so on and so on and so on. The minute I left school, and I was, left school with no qualifications, but I was so eager. And when I got my first job, and I was kind of almost asking a few questions, and they were answered. But I felt like the shackles have been kind of lifted, so to speak. And I just had this kind of like, if I actually physically work hard, or if I do this, this, and this, I can progress, and I can do this, and I can be creative. Yeah. Is that kind of how you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I left school, as I said, probably 2 years too early, but it was the first opportunity legally I could leave school. So shortly after my 16th birthday, I was out of there, man. I was gone. And we had school uniforms, and I can remember that last day taking my school uniform off and actually throwing it in the bin.
Wow.
That's how much I hated school. Yeah. Anyway, I got home, and the very first thing my dad said to me when I saw him was, okay, what are you going to do for a job? And kind of at that time in South Africa, you had a number of options. And those options were, so we had conscription, military conscription. So you had to do, every male had to do 2 years, or every white male had to do 2 years of national service. Okay. If you didn't want to do 2 years of national service, you could go and do 5 years in the police force. Okay, so those were kind of your options. Okay. If you left school early. You could go into the prison service or something like that, but those were kind of the best two options. And I thought to myself, well, I'll apply to the police first, which I got rejected because I couldn't read the exam that they wanted us to do. And then I applied to go to the military. So military service started January and July if you were going to do national service, which was the 2-year thing. And I applied to go to the permanent force, which started in April for me. So my first thing was, okay, I'm free. The shackles are off. I can do my own thing. But I had to, as I left school, it wasn't kind of that thought that went through my head, I'm now free. It was kind of like, okay, I'm going to the military in April. What am I going to do until then? And I got a part-time job working with a company that did oil analysis. Okay. And my job with the company was just, this is before the days of computers and fax machines. And so my job was to take the telex machine, tear off the ribbon, take that ribbon off to the I don't know, I can't even remember what it was called, but the machine that you would feed it into, and it would actually make sense of what was on that ticker tape. And that was my job. And very quickly I started thinking, but if I do it this way, it's going to be quicker. If I do that, that's going to work better. And again, like you, I started asking questions.
Yeah.
And I remember the guy that employed me saying to me, why are you asking that question? I said, well, I think it could go faster. He said, really interesting. Nobody's asked that question before. Well, can we do it that way? And he said, yes. And that was my first experience of somebody going, you're not stupid. You just think differently. And that kind of launched that thing off. And then when I went to the military, I didn't have to do that much reading, but I'd learned in the military because Yeah, there was a lot of things that they did which allowed me to learn a different way of reading.
Yeah.
Because there was no pressure. You know, when you're at school, you get a thing, you stand up in front of the class, and now you got to read this thing. And as we know, dyslexia is a reading disability. You just got to reprogram your brain to be able to read. And in school, you're under pressure to read, get the words right and understand it.
Yes.
And get it done, get down, sit down, shut up. Whereas in the military, they didn't expect that. And I think it had to do with there was a number of different languages that were, so you had English people and Afrikaans people. And so English people didn't tend to read Afrikaans as well as Afrikaans people did, and Afrikaans people didn't read English as well. So we kind of accommodated each other. And in that accommodation, I learned to read slower and to accept that reading slower didn't make me stupid.
Yeah.
But it allowed me to insert inflection into, and I didn't know what inflection was. I didn't know what language was, but I realized that I could say things in a different way. I could expand a word. I could use those vocal tools that we had, or I had, to read slower and actually help myself to understand what I'm reading. So for me, I think the military was great in that regard. And again, that's something that I would always encourage people to do, is find a way. I mean, I love reading now. I still read very slowly. You give me a book. I mean, I'm reading a book. It's about yay thick. I think I started reading it, and it's kind of a novel type of, I think I started reading it about a year ago, and I'm about 30 pages from the end. So yeah, it takes me a long time to read a book.
Snap.
But yeah. Yeah. But, just find ways that, for me, let me just say this to you, Darren.
Yeah.
For me, the worst thing somebody can do is send me an email. I absolutely hate the damn things.
Sorry.
Yeah. and I hate it because I struggle to read it. And it takes me time to read it through and actually understand what people are saying. Rather just pick up the phone and call me, or I will call you. But again, with that, I've learned people send emails. I've got to learn to read them. And so I've got a little app on Google Chrome that reads it for me.
Yeah.
Which is great. So I think, there's all these kind of things that we can learn once we leave school to help us to accommodate ourselves within the environment we're in. And that's I think that's one encouragement I can give to people. Somebody said to me the other day, I'm sure dyslexia goes away as you get older. Fact is, it doesn't. It's a different way in which your brain is developed. And so here's the thing that I discovered a little while back. Reading is not a natural habit for human beings. Our brains were never designed to read.
Okay.
So if you think of this, how long ago did reading start? Not all that long ago. Okay. And those people that did learn to read, they were the very educated people. The ordinary people only started reading, 200 years ago, maybe? So our brains were never designed to read. And what's happened is, as we started to learn the skill of reading, 3 areas in our brains had to adapt to accommodate the ability to read. And it's in 2 of those 3 areas that people with dyslexia have a different development of that area. And that's why it's a reading disorder. It leads to so many other things, but it's just a reading disorder. It's not a stupid disorder. Yeah. It's not a foolish disorder. It's just a different formation within your brain.
Really interesting, Vic. I love that. I really do love that. It's incredibly interesting. And I guess, if we broke down reading, I guess, what we're really trying to do is just trying to communicate, aren't we? And I guess, we're trying to communicate a message, a story or a feeling or whatever it is that we're trying to do. We're just trying to communicate. And it does seem sometimes when you try and break all these things down, we overcomplicate things sometimes.
Yeah.
And think, well, actually, that's the only way. If you want to read a book, then you must purchase the book, or go to your library and read it page to page, and that's it.
That's not the only way to read, though, Darren.
No, I know.
Exactly what you say. So here's the thing. The 3 areas of your brain that are involved in reading. One is involved with sight. Another is involved with hearing. Another involved with speaking. Those are the 3 areas that are involved with reading. So those areas, that's what they were designed to do. One to help you see better, one to help you hear better, and one to help you speak better. And so if we think of it, everybody in reality has a reading problem, because reading is not a natural thing for us to do. It's a skill we've had to learn. And so if we think of it from that perspective, people with dyslexia can then say, and this is what I've realized a few years ago, if I rather think of myself, everybody has a reading problem, because everybody brains had to adapt to be able to read. Cool. So all I've got to do is learn to adapt in a slightly different way.
Wow.
And then I'm taking myself out of this position of I've got a disability and into that position of I'm actually normal. And so are other people. I'm just normal in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things I often find with people is they say, I've got dyslexia, therefore I can't do this and I can't do that. Absolute nonsense. Some of the most creative thinkers I've come across in my life are dyslexic. So you can, okay, if I'm normal just in a slightly different way, so how do I use that slightly different way to think about this thing differently? Which kind of goes back to the point you were making earlier about leaving school and suddenly you weren't restricted anymore in the way you thought and the way you did things. Kind of goes back to that. Here I am normal in a slightly different way, which means that when I look at something, I'm not constrained by the box everybody else who thinks they are normal are constrained by. I can take that off and I can go, what about looking at it from there? Or what about this? Or how does that? And by doing that, creative thinking happens.
Yeah.
And that will build. I mean, I'd rattle off at the mouth with anybody. I'd love to talk about this stuff, but it's just thinking differently about even dyslexia. So I'm doing a huge amount of research, and don't get me wrong, I am not a neuroscientist by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not even a scientist. I've done some courses on neuroscience, and I'm doing some more, and I'm really into the whole idea of neuromarketing and neurosales and all those sort of things. But I want to understand and communicate this idea that, hey, you might have dyslexia, but you are normal. You can do normal things, just slightly differently.
Yeah.
And the whole world opens up.
It's amazing. That element, Vic, when you say it almost leads to something else, doesn't it? I'm dyslexic, I can't. I'm, neurodiverse, I can. I have dyspraxia, I'm, dyscalculia, and it almost aims with a can afterwards.
Absolutely.
And I guess that's the way that we're conditioned, I guess, that we need to either apologize that we can't do something, or it's a fear that we may be judged or this. Have you found that, Vic?
Absolutely, Darren. And that whole thing of I'm being judged, therefore I've got to apologize. And we start with that sentence, I am dyslexic, or I am. And the implication is I am, so I'm making an excuse, therefore I can't. I'm excusing who I am in front of you who appears to be normal. And I'm saying to people, don't find an excuse. Don't make an excuse for who you are. You're a human being. You've got as much value, as much intelligence, as much everything that everybody else does. Let the world see that. So instead of saying I'm dyslexic, change your way of thinking and going, I'm normal, just think differently. Wow. Now I'm not finding an excuse for why I can't. Now I'm finding an excuse for why I can.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we've got to change in business. You know, so many business people say to me, "Oh, Vic, you know, I can't employ staff because I'm..." No. Change your way of thinking. I can employ staff because I am. Slightly different in my way of thinking. Slightly different in my way of doing. So I'm a very touchy-feely kind of guy. You know, I like nothing better than a good man hug or you know, a good hug with a friend, or meeting a client. Hey, give me a hug rather than shake my hand. You know, I'm just that kind of person. And if you kind of apologizing or something, yeah, just tap me on the shoulder. Say, hey, bud, I'm sorry. That's me. And that's what I do with other people. It's because I think differently. And that's okay. Rather than putting people in a box, oh, I can't do this, can't do that, can't do the next. Just, you know, accept people. We're human. We got value. And I think by starting with the sentence, I am there, and then leading on to therefore I can't, hey, we need to kill that conversation, man.
Vic, such powerful stuff, honestly, my friend. And do you feel that, because obviously, you know, to get to that stage, you know, like you said, you developed quite a thick skin. I did also, although I'm exactly like you. I'm quite an emotional person in those aspects, and I love good chat and all these other things as well. But how important would you say then it is to, you know, to be surrounded by supportive people, but inspirational people, but also just a network of people? And I'm not saying it has to be, you know, the best business person, but it could just be a good friend. It could be anything. That how important do you feel that support network positively?
Darren, you're so right. That is not just important; it is critical. It's crucial to who you are and who you become. It's crucial to what you do and why you do it. It's crucial to your own self-esteem. And it's not just for us in the neurodiverse community. It's true for everybody. Yeah, there's a saying that years ago I heard that said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
And if you want to improve, if you want to grow in your self-confidence, if you want to grow in your skill in reading, if you want to grow in your skill of business, hang around with those people who are where you want to go, but on one condition: they are willing to pull you up with them. Yeah, so often we hear people say, you know, hang around with positive, motivated people. And you get around those kind of people, and they're positive and they're motivated and they're yeah, everything's great. And then you ask them a question and they like, what are you asking that question for? Just take my motivation, you know, buy my book. Blah, blah, blah. We don't want to hang around with those people because they're involved in their own environment. Rather hang around, like you said, hang around those friends. Find those friends who care about you, who want to see you be the best you can be, who don't care about you wear glasses, or you might stutter, or you might not hear very well, or you old, or you young. They don't care about that. They want to be around you because of you. Yeah. And they want to help you up that road with them. You hang around with those people, man alive, life changes. You know, I think there's a bloke on here that's on the call today, Ashley.
Ashley Lee, yes.
I think Ashley's still on here. Hey, Ashley, if you are there, great to see you, my friend.
He put a lovely comment up for you. He said, loving how you articulate these simple things. Great work, Vic.
Let me tell you, if you want to hang around a bloke that is always up for helping you up, hey, hang around with Ashley. You know, I know Ashley well. We've been around the block a few times, and Ashley is one of those good people that you want to hang around. Now, Ashley's not a superstar. He's not a billionaire. He's not, you know, he's just an ordinary bloke who has a care and a compassion for other people. Those are the people you want to hang around with. Find those people. Yeah, hang around with, but then you be one of those people too.
Spot on.
So as they're pulling you up, you pull them up. Don't pull them back down to you. Push them up. You know, just you be that, you'll find that.
I always remember this. I can't remember when I heard it. It was years and years ago. Someone sent me back the kind of, I think it was when I was at the seaside. It must have been my uncle or my dad. I can't remember specifically. And we were doing kind of crabbing. And, we kind of, pick the crab, you see the crab, and then you put it back in gently. Okay. Yeah. Now, with regards to the crab, I always remember seeing this crab trying to crawl out of the bucket. And as it literally just went to go over the side, the other ones grabbed it and pulled it back down. Okay. And they said, and later on in life, I kind of seen so many analogies about, as you're kind of watch those, I can't remember the actual terminology, but it's kind of the ethos is, people seeing your success and then pulling you back down. And success could be, deemed in so many different aspects. Yeah. I always remember that kind of growing up, this kind of analogy of surrounding yourself by those people that's not just going to keep pulling you.
Yeah. And that's a major problem. And it's true in every country. It's not just here in the UK or in America or South Africa or whatever. Every country has that problem where people, and it kind of works like this, in my view, and this is my humble opinion. It kind of works like this. People look at you and they see you grow. They see you growing, kind of you climbing that ladder. And they want to do it themselves, but they don't want to do what it takes to climb that ladder. And so they think if they pull you back down, and subconsciously, this isn't a kind of a conscious thing, but it's subconscious. If they pull you down, then you're at their level, then you don't make them feel guilty.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same is true with us in business, with us in life. There are those people who will push you up because they know you're going to pull them up. And there are those people who pull you down so that they can use you as a stepping ladder to climb themselves.
Spot on.
Or they want to pull you back down to their level so that they don't feel guilty about themselves where they're at. And to go back to my earlier point, get around those people who are willing to push you up or pull you up so that you grow as they grow. Those are the blokes you want to hang around with, mate. People just like you, Darren. People just like you, my friend. Because listen, I've watched these lives that you do, and I've watched the stuff that you put out, and there was that year that you did all those videos every day. And sometimes I wanted to slap you in the face because you were so encouraging and motivating. But doing that kind of stuff, you're picking people up, you're pulling them up, you're making them excited about life.
I honestly, you get good days, you get bad days, but I honestly see life as a gift, and learning and enjoying and meeting and in all these different aspects, and like I said, we're here to enjoy and experience. So yeah. Vic, I said this will go really quick, and I could talk to you, my friend, for absolute hours afterwards. We're coming to kind of our allotted time. If you could just tell people how, first of all, massive thank you for taking time.
Thank you, mate.
If you could just tell people, I'll put all the links of anything that you would like people to connect with you, but how do people get hold of you if they want to connect?
Firstly, Darren, thanks very much for inviting me, mate. It's really been great chatting with you, and I know that the next cup of coffee that you and I have together will be the first one, but it's going to be a long day.
It certainly is. I can't wait.
But yeah, if anybody wants to get hold of me, it's quite easy. I'm all over LinkedIn like a cheap suit. My LinkedIn profile, just type in Vic Williams and I pretty much come up at the top. That's the easiest way to get hold of me. Send me a direct message. I'll have a conversation with anybody. You can go to my websites. They're all busy being revamped at the moment, but vicwilliams.net is probably the main website that I'd encourage people to go and have a look at. And we can go from there. Yeah, have a conversation. Happy to do that.
Awesome. Well, I'll put any links that you want me to do. Guys, if you're all listening, please do connect with Vic. Incredible chap, doing incredible things. Please do connect with him and see the amazing work that he's doing going forward. Vic, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this show. I will catch up with you soon, my friend. Have an amazing rest of the Friday and an amazing weekend. And I'll see you soon, my friend. Take care.
And you, buddy. Take care. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. So guys, that was Vic. I hope you enjoyed that just as much as I did. An incredible chap.
a very good friend of mine. Please do connect with him. Like I said, all the details of how to connect and see the wonderful things that he's doing will be all in the blurb, the blog, the details, whatever it is, the terminology you use. Guys, again, we can't thank you enough for your support. If you are watching this on replay, please feel free to drop us a line and let us know that you watched this. And again, a massive thank you to everyone that's watched this on live. Huge thank you to Clara Writer Helper as our sponsors. We'll be back next Friday with another Neurodiversity Stories. Take care, peeps, and I'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.